In the spring of 1977, a 20-year-old woman named Colleen Stan left her home in Eugene, Oregon, hitchhiking to Northern California to attend a friend's birthday. It was an era when hitchhiking was a way of life for many young Americans, a symbol of freedom and adventure. But for Colleen, this choice would plunge her into a 7-year nightmare of captivity, torture, and psychological manipulation. Locked in a wooden box beneath a couple's bed, subjected to unimaginable cruelty, her story, known as the Girl in the Box, is one of the most chilling cases of modern slavery in history. It's a tale of human depravity, but also of extraordinary resilience. Welcome to this episode of the Drowsy Historian, where we dive deep into the haunting true story of Colleen Stan, exploring the darkest corners of the human psyche and the unbreakable strength of a survivor. The 1970s in America were a time of cultural upheaval. The counterculture movement, fueled by ideals of freedom and rebellion, made hitchhiking a common practice among young people. Colleen Stan, a vibrant 20-year-old from a working-class family in Oregon, embodied this spirit. Described as kind-hearted but cautious, she was no stranger to hitchhiking, but always trusted her instincts when choosing rides. On May 19, 1977, she stood on the side of a road in Eugene, thumb outstretched, hoping to reach a friend's home in Northern California. After turning down several offers, a blue Dodge van pulled over. Inside were Cameron Hooker, a 23-year-old lumber mill worker, his 19-year-old wife Janice, and their infant daughter cradled in the back. To Colleen, they seemed like the epitome of safety, a young family, unassuming and non-threatening. She climbed into the van, unaware that this moment would mark the beginning of a 7-year ordeal. Cameron Hooker was not the ordinary man he appeared to be. Tall, lanky, and bespectacled, he worked a blue-collar job and lived quietly in Red Bluff, California. But beneath this facade was a deeply disturbed individual, obsessed with control and violent fantasies. Influenced by sadistic pornography and bondage magazines, Cameron had long harbored desires to dominate and enslave a woman. He had already manipulated Janice, his young and impressionable wife, into agreeing to his plans, exploiting her insecurities and fear of losing him. Within hours of picking up Colleen, the hooker's true intentions emerged. They veered off the main road into a secluded area near Red Bluff. There, Cameron brandished a knife, bound Colleen's hands, and placed a heavy wooden head box over her head, a custom-built device weighing over 20 pounds designed to block out light and sound, disorienting and suffocating her. Terrified and helpless, Colleen was driven to the hooker's modest home in Red Bluff. In their basement, Cameron had constructed a coffin-like wooden box, measuring 3 feet high, 6 feet long, and 2 feet wide. Hidden beneath the couple's waterbed, this box would become Colleen's prison for much of the next 7 years. Colleen Stan's life in captivity was a descent into unimaginable horror. The wooden box under the hooker's bed became her primary confinement. For up to 23 hours a day, she was locked inside, unable to stand, stretch, or see daylight. The box was soundproofed, stiflingly hot, and so cramped that even breathing felt like a struggle. Cameron had designed it to break her physically and mentally, stripping away her sense of humanity. But Cameron's cruelty extended far beyond physical confinement. He was a master of psychological manipulation. Early in her captivity, he forced Colleen to sign a slave contract, declaring her the property of a fictitious organization called the Company. He claimed this shadowy group had eyes everywhere and would kill her family if she disobeyed or tried to escape. To reinforce this lie, Cameron staged fake phone calls in Colleen's presence, pretending to report to the Company about her behavior. This fabricated threat was so effective that Colleen lived in constant terror, too paralyzed to resist. The physical abuse was relentless. Colleen was chained, whipped, starved, and subjected to sexual assaults. Cameron, driven by his sadistic fantasies, built devices like a stretching rack to inflict further pain, drawing inspiration from his collection of violent pornography. Janice's role was equally complex and disturbing. While she occasionally showed small acts of kindness, such as giving Colleen extra food, she actively participated in the abuse, driven by a mix of fear, jealousy, and submission to Cameron's control. Janice saw Colleen as both a victim and a rival, believing her presence kept Cameron's attention away from other women. Despite the horror, there were moments when Cameron allowed Colleen brief glimpses of normalcy, a tactic to further disorient her. In 1981, he permitted a supervised visit to her family in Oregon. Brainwashed and terrified of the Company, Colleen smiled for photos and acted as if nothing was wrong, unable to signal for help. Her family, unaware of her plight, saw no cause for alarm. These moments underscored the depth of Cameron's psychological control, as Colleen's fear and conditioning silenced her cries for freedom. Psychologists later identified signs of Stockholm Syndrome in Colleen's behavior, a survival mechanism where victims bond with their captors to cope with extreme trauma. But this was not a sign of weakness. It was a testament to her resilience, as she clung to compliance as a way to endure the unendurable. By 1984, after 7 years of captivity, a shift began to emerge. Janice Hooker, increasingly tormented by her role in the abuse, started to unravel. Her marriage to Cameron had become volatile, with his controlling behavior turning against her and their 2 children. Janice had also begun attending church meetings where discussions about guilt and redemption stirred her conscience. In a pivotal moment in August 1984, Janice confessed to Colleen that the Company was a lie, a cruel fabrication Cameron used to maintain control. This revelation shattered the psychological chains that had bound Colleen for years. With Janice's help, Colleen fled the Hookers' home. She called her family and returned to Oregon, but freedom came with its own challenges. 7 years of trauma had left deep emotional scars, and Colleen struggled to reintegrate into normal life, grappling with nightmares, shame, and survivor's guilt. Meanwhile, Janice, seeking to atone for her actions, went to the police and provided a detailed account of Cameron's crimes, including descriptions of the wooden box, head box, and torture devices. Cameron Hooker was arrested in November 1984 and charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and multiple counts of sexual assault. His trial in 1985 gripped the nation as prosecutors presented chilling evidence: the wooden box, the head box, and the stretching rack found in the Hooker's home. Colleen's testimony was a turning point. With remarkable courage, she faced her abuser in court, recounting the horrors she endured. The jury was horrified, and Cameron was convicted, receiving a 104-year sentence, ensuring he would likely never walk free. Janice, granted immunity for her cooperation, left Red Bluff to start over, though she carried the burden of her complicity. The Colleen Stan case, often called the worst case of modern slavery, is a chilling study in human cruelty and resilience. Cameron Hooker's actions reflect the profile of a sociopathic predator, driven by a need for absolute control and fueled by violent fantasies. His ability to manipulate both Colleen and Janice highlights the power of coercive control, a form of abuse now better understood in psychology and law. The case also raises unsettling questions about society. How could such a crime go unnoticed in a small town like Red Bluff for 7 years? What role did cultural attitudes of the 1970s, including the normalization of hitchhiking, play in enabling this tragedy? From a legal perspective, the case was groundbreaking. It exposed the challenges of prosecuting crimes involving psychological manipulation, as The Company was a fiction that held real power over Colleen's mind. Today, the case is studied in criminology and psychology, shedding light on coercive control, Stockholm Syndrome, and the long-term effects of trauma. For Colleen, recovery was a lifelong journey. Through therapy and determination, she rebuilt her life, eventually sharing her story to advocate for other survivors. Her experience was chronicled in the book Perfect Victim and remains a powerful case study in resilience. Her story reminds us that even in the face of unimaginable darkness, the human spirit can endure and overcome. Colleen Stan's story is a harrowing journey from captivity to freedom. Her courage in surviving, escaping, and confronting her abuser is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. This case not only exposes the depths of human cruelty, but also inspires us to recognize the power of resilience and compassion. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drowsy Historian. If Colleen's story moved you, please share it and join us next time as we explore another chapter of true crime. Stay safe and take care.